The closer you get to Death Valley, the more the world stops behaving like Earth. The name itself is a warning, a legacy of suffering.
This place here once reached 134 degrees Fahrenheit, that is almost 57 degrees Celsius. And that is the highest temperature ever measured on Earth. And yet there are thousands of tourists coming here each year willingly.
For the first American pioneers who stumbled into this basin, it was a geographic mistake they thought would be their grave. But the truly shocking story isn't their suffering. It's how that misfortune kicked off an industrial boom. A boom that would, against all odds, transform one of the most hostile environments on the planet into an improbable, even luxurious tourist paradise.
So today I'm on a journey to understand how this hostile and impossible landscape, a valley where once people died trying to cross it, transformed into a tourist hotspot with a luxury hotel, golf courses, and thousands of tourists suffering here every year under the extreme temperatures. The story of the Death Valley begins in 1849. There was a group of pioneers that entered the Death Valley in search of fortune. It was the time of the California gold rush, and they were basically trying to do a shortcut through the valley to search for gold. However, they definitely underestimated this valley. Their maps were incomplete and they didn't know exactly what to expect here. What they found was crushing heat and no water at all. Days turned into weeks, their livestock collapsed in the heat, they ran out of water, and some of the families died during their attempt to cross this valley. It has been reported that the ones that survived, once they left the valley, that there was one person that turned back and said goodbye Death Valley. And the name of this valley, the Death Valley, stuck. I'm not planning to say a dramatic goodbye like that today. However, I do understand why they did it. This valley seems to be completely endless. We are just at the beginning of the valley, and there are views that are basically never ending. There are hardly people here. Sometimes we see some cars. There are some viewpoints where you can see cars, of course, but besides that, it feels super lonely here. Until today, a lot of travelers still have a lot of respect of the Death Valley and its temperatures that can exceed extreme values. We are going to drive closer to a place now to learn a bit more about the history of the Death Valley and how it transformed from the hottest place on Earth to a tourist attraction.
To early travelers, this wasn't a desert. It was a boundary between life and death. In early maps, it was even marked as impassable due to the deadly combination of heat, dehydration, and isolation.
The Death Valley literally tries to roast itself. There are mountains here in the surrounding area that ensure that clouds aren't entering the valley, basically. It is like a heat basin. The sun gets reflected by the bright ground, making this valley even hotter. And knowing how dangerous a valley like this here can be, it seems even more important to me to always stay connected. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the connection here in Death Valley is really not the best. At some places you will have connection, at some you won't. However, there's only one internet provider that actually gets you connected with the internet here in Death Valley. I personally always choose the Olafly eSIMs to stay connected whenever I travel. And the reason is that Olafly always works together with the best internet providers in the destinations, which means that you will always have the best possible internet connection guaranteed. During all of my trips, Olafly is a very reliable companion, and they offer eSIMs with unlimited internet, meaning you will never run out of data during your trips. Olafly offers eSIMs for over 200 destinations worldwide. You can purchase the eSIM before your trip and install it easily within less than 5 minutes. Just search for your destination, enter the amount of days you want to travel there, and make use of my discount code AVENTURALINA before purchasing the eSIM. Installing the Olafly eSIM is super fast and easy. It will take less than 5 minutes. They have a guide online explaining you all the single steps. Keep the eSIM deactivated until you arrive at your destination. And then it's just one click and you will enjoy unlimited mobile data from the second you arrive. There's also a link in the description below. If you click that link, you will automatically get that discount for your eSIM. Now for us, it's time to return to the car because honestly, it's getting quite hot and uncomfortable here in the sun.
Strangely, the more dangerous this desert became, the more determined people were to carve something out of it.
After the gold rush faded, the Death Valley revealed a whole different treasure, and that is borax. Borax is a white material that has been found here in the sand. It was shining through the sand, and it made this Death Valley extremely valuable because at its time it was more valuable than gold and silver. So when they found it here, they started to mine here for borax. And borax in the 18th century has been used for basically everything from detergents to medicine to cosmetics. So it was a quite frequently used material and therefore extremely valuable. Finding borax was the easiest part. The hard part was to get it out of the Death Valley. We are in the middle of nowhere here, and imagine that years ago there was even less than there is today. There were no railroads here or anything. The need to get it out of here created an American legend. You can see these wagons here behind me. These wooden wagons are replicas of the era, and they were used to transport the borax from the Death Valley 150 miles away from here to the next railway. They used 20 mules to transport these wagons through the entire desert. Imagine that. It is an extreme work, especially considering the temperatures that often exceeded 50 degrees Celsius and more. Mules, by the way, are a mixture of horse and donkey, and therefore it is an animal that combines the strength of both animals. This makes a mule perfect for these kind of works. Nevertheless, both the driver as well as the animals suffered alike. But since borax was so valuable and so profitable at that time, the work and the suffering was justified. To support the workers here at the mines, they formed a settlement nearby, and that is Furnace Creek, a city that we are going to visit next.
Furnace Creek is a small town inhabited by a few people. They worked in the area to keep up the tourism. Back during the Borax time, workers lived here in isolation, surrounded by nothing but dunes, mountains, and the constant threat of heat stroke.
In the 1920s, the borax demand declined. What happened then is actually kind of brilliant, because the Death Valley was still a place that was marketed in a completely different way. So they now transformed the Furnace Creek Inn, which has been originally used for the workers here in the area, and they transformed it into a hotel, a luxury hotel actually. It was the very first hotel here in the area, and it remains until today. Nowadays it is known as the Oasis of Furnace Creek, and this tunnel here is actually the entrance. It is kind of like a symbol for the mining culture here of Furnace Creek. So Borax built the first roads, and Borax also formed the first town here in the area. And once the borax demand declined, the whole history also transformed this whole place into a tourist hotspot. This tunnel here is actually pretty cool, a very cool entrance to a hotel. It is definitely nothing cheap to stay here, but probably a very unique experience. It's like a mining shaft that leads you towards an elevator that leads you into the hotel.
This resort was the pivot, the moment Death Valley changed from a death trap into a destination. Pools, golf courses, air-conditioned rooms, all built on top of a place that people once wanted nothing more than to escape.
There's something extremely admirable about Furnace Creek. It's a place that is designed for silence and emptiness, basically. However, there were people that decided to build a town here and then build a luxury resort here. It's a high risk to take, however, it worked. It shows that human beings go extremely far just to get a little bit the feeling of wonder.
So even in a place that once felt like hell on earth, to some, humans found a way to dig in. But making a paradise in hell always comes with a cost. And today, Furnace Creek faces new challenges. Not from gold or borax or mule roots, but from the heat itself.
Of all the outrageous things that America has built over time, this golf course here in Furnace Creek is probably the worst. It is a golf course located in the middle of the desert, where shade is basically almost non-existing and temperatures exceed 50 degrees Celsius frequently. The problem with this golf course and also with the resort here is that more and more tourists are coming. Of course, they need to be provided with water, with electricity, and all of that in an environment that is extremely sensitive. In recent years, the risk of extreme floods has been increasing here in the Death Valley, and that is probably also because of these things. They do have an impact on this fragile environment here of the Death Valley. In order for tourists to not get stranded in the Death Valley, there's even a gas station here. However, the prices are a little bit elevated. It's like $5.25 per gallon here. We paid before, I think it was $4.50. So the prices here are a bit elevated due to the location and because the next gas station is pretty far away. So I'd recommend you to always come here with a full tank. Places like this one here make me understand why people come out here to Death Valley to experience this extreme heat themselves. It is absolutely stunning to see these dunes. The whiteness of the Death Valley is impressive and it is quite a unique visit. However, there are warnings here all over the park to always stay hydrated, to stay close to air conditioning whenever possible, and to take care of yourself in general. And then I have a last little tip for you, because we are actually here at the end of November and the temperatures are actually really nice. It is not too hot, although you feel how intense the sun is. It is still very strong, but the temperatures are really nice. If you want to enjoy Death Valley without the extreme temperatures, that would be the time to come.
The Death Valley is a place where adventure meets accessibility, and that is what makes it so attractive for many.